Tonight we're heading back to medieval India, a place of towering temples, thunderous monsoons and spice markets that smell like every single dish you've ever loved and feared all at once. You arrive barefoot, of course, because nobody's handing out sneakers in the 14th century. The dust is already caking between your toes, the heat presses down like a thick wool blanket soaked in soup, and there's a distinct smell in the air, a heady cocktail of cow dung jasmine, and someone making something that definitely contains chili, whether you want it or not. You squint against the sun, which seems personally offended that you're even outside, and realize you're standing in a dry patch of cracked earth beside a village of mud brick homes with thatched roofs. Children shriek nearby, not in fear, just in the way all barefoot children do when there's no school and plenty of goats to chase. And you dropped in from the 21st century with your modern sense of hygiene and a phone with no signal suddenly realize you're completely, utterly unprepared. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin your first full day as a newly landed time traveler by doing what any self-respecting person would do, looking for a toilet. There's no polite way to say this, but your modern digestive system isn't thrilled about last night's lentils. Unfortunately, the only restroom around is a field, just a patch of trampled grass near the edge of the village, buzzing with flies and already dotted with what you really hope are cow droppings. Privacy isn't a thing here. People nod politely and continue on with their chores as you fumble with a piece of cloth that's supposed to be your new dhoti. It doesn't help that your hands are trembling from dehydration and jet lag, or whatever the time travel equivalent is. You stagger into the shade of a banyan tree hoping for relief, and that's when it hits you, the village isn't quiet. It's a constant hum. Metal clangs from a blacksmith's hut, a goat bleats nearby, a group of women chant as they grind grain by hand, and the air smells like sweat, sandalwood, and something vaguely burnt. It's all happening without any electronics, any motors, any apps, just humans grinding out their daily survival with a kind of rhythm you're completely unused to. Suddenly a man walks past, balancing a huge basket of bricks on his head like it's no big deal. He's barefoot, shirtless, and somehow not crying. You, on the other hand, are beginning to understand just how soft your modern life has made you. You miss your air conditioner, you miss your ergonomic chair, you miss deodorant. As you stumble back toward the village trying to find a shady spot to rest, a group of children approach you. They don't speak your language, but they giggle as they poke at your clothes and try to mimic your confused facial expressions. One of them offers you a mango, fresh, unpeeled, and possibly unwashed. But it's sweet. Ridiculously sweet. It drips down your chin, and you briefly forget that you're sweating through everything you're wearing. Still, this isn't a vacation. By the time the sun starts to dip toward the horizon, your back is scorched, your stomach is grumbling again, and there's a nasty blister forming on your heel from walking on sun-baked stones. You return to the hut that's been offered to you, a one-room affair with a clay floor, no furniture, and a ceiling so low you have to duck. The family who lives there nods as you enter. They're letting you sleep in the corner beside the pile of millet sacks. You lie down and realize for the first time that night in medieval India isn't peaceful. It's loud. Crickets, frogs, distant drums, and the occasional howl from something that may or may not be a jackal. You wrap your cloth around you like a cocoon and pray for sleep. But just before you drift off, something crawls across your foot. You sit up. The family's already asleep. No one else even noticed. You stare into the darkness and whisper to yourself, I am definitely not surviving this. The morning doesn't greet you so much as slap you awake. There's no alarm clock, but there is a rooster who's been screaming since before dawn, like it's auditioning for a villain role in a barnyard opera. Your back aches from sleeping on packed earth, and you're still not entirely sure if what crawled across your foot last night was a rat, a lizard, or one of the countless other creatures medieval India has tucked into every shadow. Whatever it was, it left you wide-eyed until exhaustion took over, Now the sun is already bright, the hut is stuffy, and the village is alive again. No one here gets to sleep in. You shuffle outside, clutching your side where the lentils from yesterday are staging a mild rebellion. Almost immediately you're greeted by a barefoot child who beams at you and runs off yelling something excitedly. Moments later, several adults eye you curiously. It's not the friendliness that unnerves you, it's the faint undercurrent of hierarchy. You don't belong here and everyone knows it. That's when the caste system hits you, an invisible but deeply binding code of social rank, tradition and duties that controls who you are, what you can do, and even what you can touch. You try to introduce yourself with a sheepish smile, but no one asks your name. They want to know your varna, your caste. Are you a Brahmin, a warrior, a merchant, a labourer, or worse? Are you outside the system entirely? Spoiler, you are. You're from the future, yes, but in this world you're a nobody. You have no family name, no profession, and no patron. That doesn't just make you invisible, it makes you untouchable. And not in the cool, heroic way, in the don't touch the well, or you'll pollute it kind of way. You're offered food again, this time by a cheerful older woman who hands you a small leaf bowl filled with spiced rice. You begin to reach for it, but a younger man quickly intercepts and places it down on a low stone, gesturing for you to pick it up without contact. You oblige, awkwardly crouching, realizing this isn't about hospitality, it's protocol. If you're perceived as lower caste, physical exchange is avoided to prevent ritual pollution. Historians still argue whether these practices evolved purely from religious doctrine or if they were rooted in ancient occupational divisions. But one thing's for sure, this isn't your comfort zone. You munch quietly while scanning the village. Everyone seems to know their place. The Brahmin in the corner is chanting, wrapped in clean white cloth, a cow grazing behind him like some divine co-star. The potters are busy near the kiln. A woman with clay-slicked arms sings softly as she shapes jars, her fingers moving with the confidence of someone who's done this every day since childhood. And in the far distance you hear drums, rhythmic, calm, calling people to the temple. You try to follow the sound, but a young boy stops you, pointing to your feet. You're still barefoot, but apparently not barefoot enough. Your presence inside the temple might be problematic depending on your perceived caste. Even in sacred spaces, social order is strict. You back away, nodding awkwardly, and instead join a group of other men sitting beneath a neem tree, listening to a traveling storyteller spin tales of Rama and Ravana, of Krishna lifting mountains and Shiva dancing the world into existence. It's magical until you laugh at the wrong moment. The storyteller stops. Everyone turns. Apparently that bit about the demon king losing his head was not meant to be funny. You mumble an apology, but the damage is done. A few people shift away slightly. Social cues are razor sharp here, and you're blunting them like a tourist in a pottery class. You wish you could just explain yourself, but language is a barrier. So is culture. You're a floating anomaly in a world that runs on inherited identity, rigid custom, and deeply embedded norms. And here's the worst part, there's no path for you to climb the ladder. No amount of merit money or motivational Instagram quotes will get you a promotion in this system. But then just as you're spiraling, you see something curious. A group of wandering ascetics faces ash-smeared eyes, serene, walk through the village with bowls for alms. Everyone stops to give them food. These are sadhus, holy men who have renounced caste, family, even clothes sometimes, and wander seeking spiritual liberation. You wonder if that's an escape route. Could you shave your head, wrap yourself in orange, and drift town to town, chanting in exchange for rice? The idea seems oddly romantic until you realize those men have endured years of penance, extreme fasting, and sleeping next to cremation grounds. They've opted out of society not for freedom, but for a spiritual quest that demands disciplined detachment and sometimes sitting on a bed of nails. You meanwhile still flinch every time someone raises their voice. A passing elder sits beside you, glances at your awkward posture and mutters something that sounds like pity. He flicks his hand toward the field, then toward the well, and finally toward the temple. All places you now realize you can't access fully. You're not barred by physical gates, but by invisible boundaries carved into centuries of belief and behavior. That's when it clicks. You're not just a foreigner, you're a social ghost. You don't exist in the ledgers, you don't belong in the prayers. You're tolerated, maybe even pitied, but never fully accepted. And yet, for all its rigidity, the system around you doesn't feel hateful. It's ordered, communal, and to many who live within it, perfectly natural. The injustice doesn't burn because it's invisible, it's just the air. Everyone breathes. That's the real danger for you, the outsider. You see the lines, but you can't walk them. You hear the rhythm, but you can't dance to it. You head back to your hut, ducking under a low doorway as the sun begins to fall. Today you learned you're not just unprepared, you're unranked. And in medieval India, that's about as survivable as showing up to a chess tournament with a checkerboard. You wake up sore again with the vague memory of another long night filled with strange dreams, snoring neighbors, and what might have been a cow leaning against the wall of your hut. The early air is cooler today, filled with wood smoke and the clink of metal which draws you out like a moth toward the marketplace, if only because it sounds more exciting than another breakfast of dry lentils and awkward social rules. You follow the winding dirt path until the scent hits you. First, spices, animals' sweat, and something deep-fried, maybe a samosa, maybe something else entirely. Whatever it is, your stomach perks up in hope. And then you see it, the bazaar. It isn't like the curated Instagram version. It's alive in the way a jungle is alive, chaotic, layered, loud, and mildly terrifying. Merchants shout over each other, waving their goods bracelets, copper pots, sacks of turmeric, piles of cloth so brightly dyed, you squint. There are camels snorting in the corners, goats wandering between stalls, and a monkey on a leash stealing flatbread from an inattentive vendor. You take a cautious step forward, trying not to look too obviously confused. Your modern eyes try to scan for prices, but there are no signs, no labels. Everything's negotiated, eyeballed, bartered, and deeply rooted in relationships you don't have. When you point at a string of beads, the merchant eyes you carefully. You say something, anything, and he responds with a number that you're pretty sure is 5 times the actual price. But how would you know? You can't read the script, and you don't know the units. You hand over a coin from the little leather pouch you've been given, and he laughs, then gives you change in shells and more coins of varying weight. Welcome to the barter economy, where money's more confusing than quantum physics. A boy brushes past you quickly, and when you instinctively pat your side, you realize your pouch is lighter, much lighter. Congratulations. You've been pickpocketed by a child probably no older than 10 who's already vanished into the crowd like a magician. You look around, but no one offers help. It's not indifference, it's survival. The market is a free-for-all, and if you're not alert, you're lunch. You duck into a shaded area where a man is squatting over a grill, flipping something flat and steaming. You ask what it is. He grins and holds it out. You sniff it. Smells like spiced heaven. You bite it. It's blistering hot and delicious until your tongue starts to burn. You nod appreciatively, then cough until tears stream down your face. The man pats your back and hands you a brass cup of water that tastes vaguely like iron and possibly banana. You gulp it down anyway. Nearby, a group of musicians starts playing a flute, a drum, something like a sitar. It's mesmerizing. The crowd stills for a moment, entranced. Then the musicians launch into a faster rhythm, and a dancer appears barefoot and dust-covered, twirling so fast the bells on her ankles blur. You're pulled in by the artistry, the sheer presence of performance in a world without TikTok. But as quickly as it starts, it ends. The dancer collects coins, nods respectfully, and disappears. Behind the stalls, you spot another kind of exchange. 2 men lean close, whispering, glancing around. One slips a cloth-wrapped package under his tunic, another hands over a suspiciously heavy pouch. You've just witnessed some form of backdoor deal, maybe spice smuggling, maybe illegal weapons, maybe rare manuscripts. You'll never know. This isn't a police state, but it's also not Disneyland. Justice, if it comes, might arrive as a fine, a public shaming, or if things are serious, a brutal punishment at the edge of town. Historians still argue whether local kings allowed such markets to self-regulate or employed secret informants to maintain balance. Suddenly there's shouting from the far end. A cow has wandered into a cloth stall and is currently chewing on someone's newly dyed linen. A woman throws a sandal, someone else throws water, and the cow just stares unimpressed and continues chewing. You learn quickly that cows here are sacred, untouchable, and unhurried. You let out a laugh too loud, and a few people glance your way, confused. You muffle it and back away. Then you notice something you missed. Before a small group of people, quiet heads bowed, waiting outside a single, shaded stall. It's an astrologer's tent. The man inside sits cross-legged, surrounded by scrolls, ink pots, and a large brass astrolabe. One by one, people enter and ask for fortune readings, wedding dates, advice on when to plant rice. You peer in curiously and the astrologer glances up. For a moment, you lock eyes. He beckons you forward. You hesitate, but curiosity wins. You sit. He asks your name, then your birth star. You give him your date of birth, and he frowns at the concept of AD. Still he scribbles something, furiously calculates on his fingers, mutters about Mars being in the wrong place. Finally, he looks up and says, in broken Sanskrit, "You're not meant to be here. Your stars don't belong." You try to smile. He's not wrong. The sun climbs high, and the market begins to thin out. People retreat to rest before the evening bustle begins again. You look down at your now empty pouch, slightly sweaty shirt, and blistered toes, and you realize you survived the medieval market. Barely. As you make your way back to the village edge, you pass a butcher, cleaning his blade beside a freshly skinned goat. He grins and waves with a hand still slick with something you don't want to name. You wave back politely and quicken your pace. You slump back beneath the banyan tree, heart still racing from the noise, the color, the sheer unpredictability. Today you learned that even shopping in medieval India could require street smarts, linguistic agility, and possibly pepper immunity. And honestly, you're already dreading dinner. It's day 4 of your unplanned medieval India survival retreat, and your stomach has now turned on you. After your marketplace adventure, you'd hoped for something light, a warm broth, maybe a coconut. What you got was a gritty mix of overcooked lentils and what might have been pickled mango, but tasted suspiciously like vinegar marinated in dust. You're not sure what part of the meal did it, but you now wake up groaning, clutching your midsection like you just lost a cage fight to a particularly spicy ghost. Desperate to feel human again, you decide to bathe. After all, how bad can it be? You ask around, gesturing, mostly because language continues to be the final boss in your time travel journey, and eventually someone points toward the river. Ah yes, the river. You remember seeing it from afar. Wide glimmering, framed by trees and soft chanting. It looked peaceful. Holy even. But the closer you get, the more details emerge. You pass clusters of people carrying laundry pots and sometimes even dead relatives, because here, rivers are not just for washing, but also for dyeing. Specifically, the Ganges and other sacred rivers play central roles in rituals of life and death. Ashes of the deceased are released into the water. Bodies are bathed in it for purification. Newborns are blessed with a splash across their foreheads. Historians still debate the extent to which urban river pollution was recognized at the time, but the religious significance of these waters meant they were always full of life. And not just the figurative kind. You step cautiously onto the muddy bank where people are squatting at various intervals. A few are soaked up, some are scrubbing clothes on flat stones, and in one corner a man is sitting cross-legged with eyes closed, meditating beneath a rising pillar of incense. You admire his serenity right up until a large water buffalo walks past and relieves itself in the river 3 meters upstream. You stare in horror. And then you remember you're supposed to get in. You wade into the river like someone approaching a haunted bathtub. It's cooler than expected, and for a moment almost pleasant, until your foot slips and you submerge your entire head, swallowing a generous gulp of water that tastes like wet clay and something disturbingly organic. You surface, gasping, spluttering, trying to appear casual, as 2 teenage boys laugh nearby. But that's just the beginning. You try to clean yourself Without soap, which is expensive and rare, without privacy non-existent, and without stepping on anything squishy too late. Your modern standards for hygiene start melting away. There's no scented body wash, no shampoo, no towel warmer, just sun, river water, and an overwhelming sense that something in the mud just nibbled your ankle. After flailing through a rinse-off and staggering out to dry like a soggy bird, you spot a small ceremony nearby. A family is gathered in a semicircle, chanting as an old man is bathed by younger relatives. You realize it's a ritual purification before cremation. The old man is barely moving. You're witnessing the end of a life carried out with grace chants and deep faith. And then, because medieval India never lets you off easy, you notice a bloated shape farther downriver. You squint. It's a partially burned body, floating, forgotten. You turn away, your stomach lurching again, and retch quietly behind a tree. Death here isn't hidden behind sterile hospital curtains. It's part of the water, the air, the routine. You return to the village dripping wet and strangely silent. A few people glance at you with indifference. Everyone here bathes in the river. To them, this is as normal as brushing teeth, assuming you have any left. You're the only one walking like you've just witnessed something earth-shattering, which, to be fair, you have. You dry off in the sun, but your mood is soggy. You sit on a flat stone, half-dressed, trying to process how sacred and unsanitary can coexist so tightly. To you, water is supposed to be clean, or at least chlorinated. Here, water is holy even when it isn't clean. It's meant for purification, not sterilization. There's a difference. You begin to understand that survival isn't just about avoiding disease, it's about reshaping your expectations entirely. Later, you overhear two older men discussing the river's moods. They believe the river knows when someone's time has come, that it carries souls gently toward release. You want to roll your eyes, but you also just saw a man serenely pass from this world beside chanting family and flower petals. Maybe they're not entirely wrong. Back at the hut, you finally sit down to rest. Your clothes are still damp, your stomach's still protesting, and your skin itches slightly from what may or may not be a reaction to the water. You think longingly of showers, of fluffy towels, of flush toilets. And yet there's something grounding about the experience. In a strange way, the river humbled you more than anything else so far. It reminded you that even discomfort can carry meaning, that even polluted water can be revered, that even in your weakest moments, gagging on river sludge while a buffalo watches, you're learning something deeply human. But also next time you're just going to sprinkle a few drops on your head and call it good. Today begins with a smell. Not the kind of smell that gently wafts in and reminds you of fresh bread or clean laundry. No, this is the kind of smell that hits you square in the face and demands immediate attention. It's coming from a pot simmering over a low fire just outside your hut, an oily, bubbling concoction that looks like it contains roughly 6 different legumes and a level of spice designed to make your nose run from across the village. You're hungry? Really hungry? But your stomach, now acting more like a nervous diplomat than a digestive organ, sends a firm memo: proceed with caution. Still, you've got to eat something. You sit cross-legged beside your host family, who cheerfully ladle a generous portion of the mush onto a dried leaf. A stack of coarse flatbreads, roti, you think sits nearby. You reach out, remembering not to touch the communal pot directly. You've learned your caste place lesson and tear off a piece of bread to scoop up the lentil mix. The first bite is surprisingly good. Earthy, a little sour, richly spiced, but then the chili hits like a freight cart. You try to play it cool, but your eyes water, and you make the kind of face a squirrel might make after accidentally eating wasabi. Your hosts chuckle kindly, one of them handing you a raw onion to bite into a common coolant, apparently. You do, and while it helps, it also leaves your mouth tasting like despair. You thank them in the few words you've picked up and keep eating. This is the medieval Indian diet in a nutshell: grain, lentils, vegetables if you're lucky, and spices that don't ask for permission. Meat exists, but it's rare and not always accessible, especially if you're mingling with vegetarian households, common among many Hindu communities. Dairy is more frequent yogurt, milk, ghee, and sweets exist, oh yes, but not for you. Not today. Not with that look the neighbor gave you when you touched the sugar jar yesterday. There's no refrigerator, obviously. Everything is fresh, or rather, it must be fresh. Anything left out too long becomes a playground for flies and bacteria. Food storage here means earthenware pots tucked in shaded corners, not Ziploc bags or Tupperware. Spices play a double role. They flavor food and help preserve it. And when something goes bad, people don't complain, they adapt. You finish your meal and begin to stand when your legs nearly crumple beneath you. Your energy is dipping fast. You've been eating, sure, but your modern body is used to calories on demand, caffeine jolts and protein powders. Here, meals are smaller, less varied, and honestly more a ritual of gratitude than fuel optimization. You're losing weight. You're not thriving, you're just treading water with a bowl of rice. Still, there's a rhythm to it. Every household prepares meals at roughly the same times. Smoke rises from every courtyard like a communal heartbeat. Kids run with pieces of jaggery in hand. Old women grind spices with long stone mortars. And you spot a man milking a cow with the tenderness of someone writing a love letter. It's raw, slow, and deeply intimate. But the risks, oh, they're everywhere. You notice a girl next door who hasn't moved in hours. Her mother tries to feed her, but she turns away weakly. You ask someone what's wrong. They answer in words you barely catch, but one rings clear panny. Water. She's sick from it. A fever. Possibly cholera, maybe dysentery, maybe something worse. There are no clinics here, no antibiotics, just turmeric pastes, sacred chants, and whatever luck the gods feel like dealing today. Historians still debate just how common mass foodborne illness was in medieval Indian villages. The Ayurvedic texts show a surprising understanding of diet digestion and even the effects of contaminated food. But without microscopes, germ theory or modern sanitation meals could be as dangerous as they were nourishing. You think about that as your stomach grumbles again. Was that last lentil undercooked? Was the water in that cup truly boiled? Did that mango vendor earlier wipe his hands after touching that goat? You realize there's no way to know. Your survival hinges on chance tolerance and the sheer stubbornness of your immune system. Later, someone invites you to a communal cooking event, an offering to a local deity involving the preparation of sweet prasadam. You watch as the women stir massive pots of ghee-laced rice sugar and raisins. The smell is heavenly. It's shared on banana leaves, warm and soft, and for once you eat something without fear or fire in your mouth. It's the first time in days you feel full, not just with food, but with quiet joy. You sit back, hands sticky, watching the orange sky melt into dusk. Kids laugh, bells chime from a distant shrine. Someone plays a flute and an old man starts humming along. You'd almost forget where you are until a fly lands in your mouth. Back to reality. You rinse your mouth with the last of your water swat at the air and sigh. Here, food is more than survival. It's social glue, spiritual duty, economic currency. It connects people, binds events, blesses offerings, and seals marriages. But for you, it's also a daily gamble. You head back to the hut, heart slightly fuller than your belly, but aware that tomorrow might bring another lentil lottery. And in medieval India, that's as close to a Michelin star as you're going to get. You don't even need to stub your toe. Just sleeping wrong on this floor is enough to mess up your back, twist your shoulder, and leave your neck stiffer than a royal decree. By now, your body feels like it's trying to escape itself. You stretch, groan, and contemplate whether medieval India has invented chiropractors yet. Spoiler, it hasn't. So when one of the villagers gestures toward a thin man sitting cross-legged under a peepal tree, murmuring over a bundle of herbs, you don't hesitate. He's the local healer. Or as you might romantically imagine him, an Ayurvedic practitioner. You shuffle over, clutching your lower back like someone 3 times your age, and attempt to mime your pain. He nods, slowly dips a finger into a paste that smells like crushed mint and bitter roots, and gestures for you to lie down. You obey. What follows is a kind of massage, but also not. His fingers are both gentle and abrupt, his technique somewhere between therapeutic and interpretive dance. At one point, he presses directly into your spine and whispers a word that might be Sanskrit or might just be his opinion of your posture. Afterward, he gives you something wrapped in a leaf, tiny black pellets that look like rabbit droppings and taste worse. Medicine, he says. You chew them reluctantly and immediately regret all your life choices. Ayurveda, the ancient Indian system of medicine, isn't just herbal teas and yoga retreats. It's a full philosophical framework. Balance is key between vata, air, pitta, fire, and kapha, earth. Your imbalance, it turns out, is probably all three. Historians still argue about how closely these ancient principles align with modern anatomy, but the system is meticulous and deeply integrated into daily life. Diagnosis comes not from blood tests, but from looking at your tongue, feeling your pulse, and occasionally just squinting at your face very seriously. Later that day, a young boy with a swollen eye is brought to the healer. He applies a paste made from neem and turmeric and recites a few lines of what sounds like a prayer. The boy winces, then smiles. You wonder whether it's the herbs, the chant, or the sheer will of belief that makes it work. But not all ailments are skin deep. Across the village, a woman is moaning inside her hut, her labor well underway. Childbirth here is a community event, but also a gamble. There are no epidurals, no fetal monitors, and definitely no sterile gloves. Just experience, intuition, and the ever-watchful eyes of elder midwives. The wails rise and fall raw and rhythmic. Eventually a thin cry pierces the dusk, followed by cheers and bells. A new life has entered the world, unvaccinated, undocumented, and incredibly fragile. You sit with that for a while. How so many survived, you're not sure. Basic injuries can become death sentences. A twisted ankle might never heal right. A fever could mean anything from a common cold to malaria. And yet people endure generations of them, passing down remedies, rituals, and sometimes a lucky charm made from bone bead or flower. The flip side. Medical curiosity sometimes veers into horror. You learn this the hard way when an elder insists you join him in visiting a nearby settlement that recently acquired a new doctor. Turns out he's an alchemist of sorts, fond of mercury ash and questionable incantations. You enter the darkened room to find a man painting symbols on a skull and muttering to a flame. He offers you a blackened drink that bubbles ominously and claims it will clear your wind. You pretend to sip it and spend the next hour praying your fake swallow looked convincing. Some practices, even in Ayurveda, involve treatments modern science would advise against. There are enemas of butter, nasal infusions of oil, and famously, leech therapy. You thought leeches were medieval Europe's thing. Think again. One man proudly shows you a cloth pouch filled with the squirmy creatures and says they drink illness from the blood. You thank him, decline politely, and make a mental note to sleep with your mouth closed. But not everything is bizarre. There's wisdom here too. You're given a mixture of honey and ginger for your sore throat, and it works like magic. A tea brewed with tulsi leaves actually calms your stomach. A compress of sandalwood and rosewater eases the heat rash blooming across your chest. Not all treatments are superstition. Many are practical, tested by generations and lovingly preserved. At dusk, the healer visits you one more time. He sits silently watching you chew another revolting pellet. Then he hands you a string of rudraksha beads and mutters, "This helps the weak-hearted." You're not sure if that's a diagnosis or an insult, but you take it anyway. You lie down that night with your limbs sore, your nose full of camphor oil, and your mind spinning. Medicine here is not a service, it's a relationship. A dance between body, spirit, and nature. A gamble made holy. And for better or worse, you're part of it now. One last thought crosses your mind before sleep. Back pain may be universal, but painkillers, definitely not. This morning begins with what you can only describe as a crisis of fashion. You've now spent a full week in medieval India, and every piece of modern clothing you arrived with has either disintegrated, been quietly borrowed by a local washer, or become so embedded with the local dust that it has changed color and texture permanently. You're left with two options: continue wearing what feels like a woven potato sack, or finally accept the full medieval Indian wardrobe makeover. You choose surrender. The first item they hand you is a simple, unstitched rectangle of cloth, white, scratchy, with a faint smell of turmeric and smoke. You're told to wear it like a dhoti. You nod, even though you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. What follows is 15 minutes of wrapping, unwrapping, twisting and retying, all under the amused supervision of a group of elderly women who laugh so kindly you can't even be offended. Eventually you're declared acceptable, though one corner of your dhoti keeps threatening to slip at any moment. Next comes a thin tunic tied loosely at the waist and a scarf to drape over your shoulder. You feel like you're playing dress-up in history class until you catch your reflection in a copper plate and realize you sort of blend in now. Not quite, but close. But clothes here aren't just about blending in, they're full of meaning. Fabric, color, style, even the way a scarf is folded, says something about your status, gender, religion, and region. You learn that white, while associated with purity, is also worn by widows in many communities. Bright reds are for brides, deep saffron, that's for monks or holy men. The bright blue someone hands you, reserved in many areas for lower castes. Suddenly picking an outfit feels like navigating a political debate, except you're not even sure what side you're on. You look around and realize everyone else is dressed for both utility and symbolism. The potter's wife ties her sari above the knee to keep from tripping in the clay. The priest's robes are spotless despite the dust. Children run half-naked laughing until a grandmother swoops in with a spare cloth and scolds them into modesty. It's hot, by the way. Really hot. And these fabrics? They don't breathe, they wheeze. You start sweating before you even step into the sun, and once outside your clothes cling to you like damp paper. You miss linen, you miss moisture wicking anything. And most of all, you miss underpants. There are no elastic waistbands here, friend. Just knots, hope, and the occasional breeze that feels a bit too generous. And then there are the accessories. Someone hands you a turban. Not the regal, towering kind from Bollywood movies, but a long strip of cloth you're supposed to wind around your head to protect from sunstroke. You try, you fail, you try again. It droops like a sad towel. A young boy finally helps you wrap it correctly, laughing so hard he nearly chokes on his snack. Footwear is similarly humbling. Leather sandals. Not unless you're rich. You're given a pair of wooden paduka, basically flip-flops made by someone who had never seen a foot. They click against your heels with every step and do absolutely nothing to protect you from pebbles, thorns, or the mysterious squish you stepped in yesterday. You think maybe jewelry is optional. It isn't. Even small children wear anklets. Married women wear Mangal Sutras, sacred necklaces. Some wear nose rings or toe rings. Men might wear bangles or Rudraksha beads. One elderly merchant wears a massive golden earring that looks like it could double as a door knocker. You're given a red thread to tie around your wrist. You ask what it means. No one answers. You tie it anyway. Historians still debate how much of medieval Indian clothing was influenced by climate, religion, or simple availability of materials. Cotton was widely grown and spun, and indigo was a major export. Silk was rare and precious, worn mostly by royalty and the deeply pious. Dyes came from crushed plants, minerals, even insects. It's beautiful, yes, but also wildly impractical for someone used to washing machines and polyester. Midday brings a new challenge. You're invited to a formal gathering at the temple, a community meeting. You're honored, you're terrified, you're also starting to chafe. Your dhoti has twisted itself into an angry knot, your scarf is soaked through, and every time you sit down, something rides up that shouldn't. Still you go, you sit among villagers on woven mats. You try to fold your legs like everyone else. You fail. Your foot falls asleep within minutes. A small girl nearby offers you a mango slice and giggles as you fumble it. Despite the discomfort, you begin to appreciate something. Clothing here isn't just what you wear, it's how you exist. It determines how others see you, how you move, even how you speak. It protects and reveals, and it connects everyone through shared ritual. Dressing here is a ceremony. By nightfall, you strip off your outer layers and lie in your corner of the hut, fanning yourself with a piece of banana leaf half naked and profoundly relieved. You've survived a full day dressed like a local, barely. You haven't torn anything, you haven't accidentally exposed yourself, you haven't been bitten by anything visible. And even though your hips are sore and you're fairly sure the thread around your waist has left a permanent dent, you find yourself thinking, maybe you look okay in a dhoti. Just don't ask anyone else to confirm that. The rooster crows again. Of course it does. At this point, you've started plotting its downfall, fantasizing about building a time machine just to bring back an alarm clock with a snooze button. But that's not how this world works. Here, your day begins with the light, with the clang of metal pots, with your host's youngest child kicking dust into your sleeping space as she runs outside to chase a goat that's stolen a banana leaf. It's charming, it's chaotic, and unfortunately today, it's also a work day for you. You've been gently, yet very clearly assigned to help with labor. No more pretending to be a mysterious guest from afar. No more skulking under the banyan tree, watching life unfold. Today, you're part of the machinery. And let's be honest, it's not a smooth ride. Your first task is to carry water. Simple, right? You've seen the movies. Just balance a pot on your head and walk gracefully from the well. What the movies don't show is the training montage you apparently need before doing that. The pot is heavy, the path is uneven, and the moment you manage to lift the full clay vessel onto your head, your neck makes a noise that can only be described as a threat. 2 steps in, the pot wobbles. 3 steps in, you overcorrect. 4 steps in, the whole thing topples, soaking you completely. You now understand why everyone stares when someone actually succeeds at this. Next up, pounding grain. This involves a giant wooden pestle, a carved-out stone basin, and the kind of repetitive rhythm that would make a metronome dizzy. You're supposed to use your body weight, they say. You try, your body says no. By the time you get through a single bowl of millet, your arms feel like they've been slowly boiled and then tied into knots. Around you, others are working too flawlessly, methodically, without complaint. The blacksmith sharpens a blade using a foot-powered grinder. A weaver spins thread with the speed of a spider on espresso. Farmers pass with baskets of okra and eggplants. Even the children are productive, feeding chickens, gathering sticks, or helping elders with cloth dyeing. You meanwhile are panting like you've just run a marathon in slow motion under the sun, wearing shoes made from cardboard. And regret. There are no breaks. Or at least not the kind you're used to. You sit on a log for what you think is 5 minutes, and immediately someone hands you another task, helping with firewood. You think they're joking. They're not. You follow a woman into the forest outskirts where she gathers huge bundles of sticks, ties them expertly with jute rope, and lifts hers onto her back with the ease of a pro wrestler. You lift yours and promptly fall backwards. She smiles gently and adjusts the bundle for you. It still weighs more than your dignity. As the sun climbs higher, the heat begins to thicken. There's no shade on the walk back. No water fountain. Just your body. The dust and a sweat that feels like it's coming from places you didn't know had sweat glands. You realize then how different work is in this world. It's not just about efficiency. It's about survival. If you don't work, you don't eat. If the community doesn't pitch in, things fall apart. There are no managers, no email chains, no HR departments. Your performance review is whether or not you brought back enough firewood to cook dinner. Historians still argue about how medieval Indian labor systems were organized, especially for non-caste occupations and itinerant workers. But what's clear is that labor was deeply tied to identity. A potter didn't just make pots, they were a potter. It wasn't a job, it was their social function. You don't get to reinvent yourself here. You do what your father did. You do what your ancestors did, and you do it every single day without weekends, wellness retreats, or coffee breaks. At one point, you're sent to help repair a roof. Just a few palm fronds, nothing fancy. You're told to climb a rickety bamboo ladder. You stare at it like it's a death sentence. It creaks, sways, and looks like it was last reinforced in the Gupta period. Still you climb. Slowly. You reach the roof, crouch awkwardly, and immediately jab your thumb on a splinter. You hiss through your teeth, and the man beside you laughs, then hands you a leaf to wrap around it. You're not sure if it's medicinal or decorative. You use it anyway. By late afternoon, you're a walking collection of bruises and shame. You've spilled water, dropped firewood, pounded a total of 1 bowl of grain, and nearly fallen off a roof. And yet no one mocks you, no one scolds you. They just pat your back gently because they see the sunburn and hand you a brass cup of buttermilk. It's sour, salty, and incredibly refreshing. You sit down beneath the neem tree with the others, and for the first time no one glances at you like an outsider. You worked. Badly, yes, but you showed up, you tried. And in this world, that's half the battle. The evening brings with it a small breeze. Women begin lighting oil lamps, children gather for stories. You lean back, sore but oddly satisfied. Today was a disaster, but also a lesson. Labor here is more than effort. It's identity, community, continuity. You try to stretch, wince, and mutter something about needing a hot bath. A nearby elder chuckles and says something that probably translates to good luck with that. You lie down, muscles throbbing, dirt in every crevice, hands blistered, but oddly, you sleep deeper than you have in days. Because pain, apparently, is the most honest lullaby in medieval India. You awaken to the distant ring of temple bells and the sharp sting of a bug bite on your ankle, your welcome back gift from the medieval insect kingdom. The sky is just lightning pink streaks cutting across the pale blue as birds chatter overhead. You sit up, slowly body sore from yesterday's foray into manual labor, and stretch your arms only to remember that one shoulder refuses to cooperate. No matter. You're up now, but before your day begins in earnest, a kindly neighbor hands you something wrapped in cloth and nods gravely. It's not food, it's a warning. Inside is a small token, a knot of red thread, and a sliver of copper etched with symbols. You raise an eyebrow. She points toward your mouth, then to the sky, then wags her finger sternly. Someone else walks past and mutters something that sounds vaguely like, "Careful what you say today." You've barely had your first spoonful of spiced rice when you learn that this village, like many others in this era, lives by its words. Or, more precisely, watches its words. Speech here is more than communication. It's a tool, a weapon, a ritual, and sometimes a legal liability. Say the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time, and you might find yourself the topic of village gossip, the target of a fine, or in some cases, facing something far worse than disapproval. Today you're treading through a world where honor is currency. Public insult. That's a wound that could start a feud lasting generations. Disrespect to a priest, you could be banned from communal water sources. A careless joke about a king that's potentially treason and in some places could earn you a one-way trip to the nearest elephant. And yes, punishment by elephant is a thing. Historians still argue whether such executions were as widespread as royal edicts claimed, but in many courts it was real, symbolic, and terrifying. You make a mental note, do not joke about elephants. You walk toward the village square and find a small crowd forming. A heated argument is brewing. Two men stand face to face, voices rising. The crowd watches in silence, not just because of curiosity, but because everyone knows the weight of words. A third man steps in, a respected elder, or perhaps a kind of informal judge. The argument is diffused quickly. Both men are asked to apologize, not for the action, but for the speech. One of them resists, and just like that, his access to shared tools is revoked for the day. Social consequences are swift, quiet, and often more effective than any shouting. You try to ask someone about what just happened, but phrase it wrong. Your question meant, as what was the argument about, comes out sounding like, "That man lies a lot." A few heads turn. A child giggles, an old woman frowns deeply. You feel a cold trickle of panic. You apologize immediately, bow your head, try to look harmless. It works barely. You're forgiven with a polite nod, but from now on, people speak to you more cautiously. You've stumbled into the delicate dance of speech and status. You realize quickly that there's a hierarchy to language here. Sanskrit is sacred, spoken only by priests and scholars, loaded with spiritual gravity. Prakrit is softer, used by poets and traders. Tamil, Kannada, Bengali, each region speaks in its own rhythms and you're barely keeping up. You don't just have to learn words, you have to learn when to speak, how to speak, and to whom. Voice too loud, arrogant, too soft, deceitful. Eye contact. That's either respectful or disrespectful depending on who you're talking to. By mid-morning, you're invited to sit in on a reading. A local poet recites verses from the Ramayana, her voice clear, steady, and woven with meaning. Every word lands like a stone in a pond, rippling out through the listeners. The crowd nods in time, sighs in the right places, and praises her pronunciation. You try to join in, mispronounce the name of a deity, and the man next to you chuckles gently, covering your mistake with a well-timed cough. You're grateful, you're also terrified. Every word is a minefield. Speech is performance, and performance is power. In royal courts, scribes record declarations, poets flatter kings with double-layered metaphors, and one wrongly spoken proverb can ruin a career. You remember reading somewhere that in some kingdoms, sarcastic bards were kept as entertainers, but also as informants recording court politics through coded verse. You can imagine it now, flattery on the surface, daggers underneath. But the sharpest dangers are local. A woman scolds her daughter loudly in the street. Within an hour, 3 other women are whispering about it. A man accuses another of selling watered-down ghee. By sunset, the accused has packed up his goods and relocated his stall 2 villages over. Reputation moves faster than any arrow. The punishment isn't formal, it's social, isolation, shame, distrust. You start to feel paranoid. Did you say too much earlier? Were your jokes too flippant yesterday? That offhand comment about how royalty seems overrated, who heard that? You practice silence, you nod more, you say less, you find it's actually restful. You sit beside the temple steps as the sun goes down, watching shadows stretch across the stone. 2 children are whispering a story, probably invented, probably exaggerated, about a ghost that haunts the fig tree. You smile. This at least feels familiar. Gossip, even ghost gossip, is universal. Someone sits beside you. It's the elder from the morning argument. He hands you a small round sweet nods once and says, "Good words bring good endings." You nod back quietly, carefully. Tonight you fall asleep thinking of all the things you didn't say, and in this world that might be your greatest achievement yet. You are awoken by thunder, not the booming kind that shakes the walls, but a low, grumbling roll in the distance, followed by the sound of hurried feet and flapping cloth. People are moving fast this morning, rolling up mats, bringing in firewood, covering the grain left out to dry. The air smells different, damp, metallic, and tinged with anticipation. You step outside and look up at a sky that is no longer blue, but a thick, churning grey. The wind picks up, tugging at your borrowed tunic like a warning, and then without ceremony it begins to pour. Welcome to the monsoon. Rain in medieval India is no joke. It's not just water, it's a season, a mood, a force of nature that commands respect. You dart under the awning of a neighbouring hut, barely dodging a miniature flood that forms in the clay lane. A woman pulls her goat inside. A child tries to chase a chicken and slips, dramatically landing in the mud with a squeal of delight. Meanwhile, you are standing in half a puddle, your feet already squelching in sandals that were never meant for this kind of warfare. At first, it's almost pleasant. Coolness is a relief, a cleansing balm after days of dry heat and sunburns. You watch as the rooftops darken, the streets turn into rivulets, and the trees sway with rhythm. It's beautiful until you realize that the latrine pit behind your hut is now overflowing. You back away quickly. Because sanitation in medieval India during monsoon season is a calculated risk. Latrines, when they exist, are basic at best, often nothing more than pits dug behind huts, occasionally covered with reeds or wood. With the rains come floods, with floods come movement, and with movement comes the very real threat that what was once safely buried is now very much not. You trudge uphill in search of dry ground, holding your tunic above your knees like a noble at a mud wrestling match. Every path is slippery, every stone is loose, and every step comes with the risk of something squishing underfoot. You pass a group of men trying to unclog a drain with bamboo poles shouting instructions over the roar of the rain. One of them gestures for you to help. You grab a stick and jab at the mud with no idea what you're doing. It works. Something gurgles, a rush of brownish water explodes from the drain. You jump back just in time. Welcome to communal sanitation duty. The rain doesn't stop. It's not a passing shower, it's a siege. Roofs begin to leak. A large tree is struck by lightning in the distance, sending a plume of smoke into the grey sky. And beneath it all, the village does what it always does. It adjusts. Fires are moved indoors. Cooking happens on raised platforms. Children splash in puddles with bare-bottomed joy. Life continues just a little soggier. But as the day wears on, the charm wears thin. You start to feel a tickle in your throat. Is it the rain? Is it the water you accidentally swallowed this morning while brushing your teeth with river runoff? Is it just exhaustion? You don't know. But now you're damp cold and sniffly. People notice. You're handed a mixture of ginger pepper and honey. You drink it. It burns going down, but it clears your sinuses like a freight train. A woman tucks a piece of cloth around your shoulders and mutters something about evil air. You thank her. You sneeze anyway.
And then come the mosquitoes. Oh, the mosquitoes!
With stagnant water comes a breeding ground for nature's most annoying and potentially lethal pest. You swat one and 5 take its place. You try to cover yourself, but they find the gaps. You try to sleep under a cloth, but the humidity is unbearable. The locals smear their skin with herbal pastes, burn neem leaves, light smoky fires near windows. You try them all. You are still bitten. Historians still argue how aware medieval Indian societies were of the diseases spread by mosquitoes like malaria or dengue. They didn't have microscopes, but they certainly noticed patterns. The rains come, people get fevers, some never recover. Remedies exist, of course. You're given a decoction that smells like despair and tastes like boiled boot leather. It helps. Maybe. The next morning, the rain finally slows. The ground is a mosaic of puddles and footprints. The air smells like wet earth and cow dung. The sun peers through the clouds like it's checking to see if it's safe to come out. You sit on the edge of a step and take it all in: the soaked village, the sagging laundry, the woman wringing out her sari with grim determination, the children floating sticks in the new stream that runs through what used to be the courtyard. It's hard to believe this is normal, but it is. Every year the monsoon arrives. It feeds, the crops, fills the wells and floods the roads. It brings life and discomfort in equal measure. People build their routines around it. Their faith, too. You hear prayers of thanks for the rain, even as people slog through ankle-deep sludge. The paradox is real and constant. The monsoon both blesses and burdens. You head back to your hut, squelching, shivering, mosquito-bitten and grateful to be out of the downpour. You pour water from your clay cup into a bowl, watching the ripples as thunder grumbles again in the distance. You're not sure if it's over. No one is. But you know this much: rain here doesn't pause life, it's part of it. And in medieval India, survival isn't about avoiding the storm, it's learning how to live inside it. You wake up to the sound of drums. Not war drums, at least you hope not, but the kind that thrum through your ribs and seem to announce something is happening, and you'd better come see it. You pull on your now perpetually damp clothing and follow the pulse of percussion through the winding paths of the village until you reach a wide clearing already packed with people. Bright fabrics swirl, smoke rises from incense sticks, and the air smells of marigold's ghee and a hint of something faintly singed. It's festival day. You don't know which one. Maybe it's Holi, maybe Diwali, maybe a local harvest celebration no textbook ever mentioned. But it doesn't matter. Everyone is glowing, not just with color but with energy. You're ushered forward, handed a handful of flower petals, and find yourself standing in front of a shrine built from clay branches and cloth. Children run past you with colored powder, squealing in delight. Someone behind you shouts a prayer that sounds like a cheer. It's not optional participation, you're already in it. The whole village seems transformed. The poorest family wears their best saris. Farmers have painted their oxen with bright designs. Musicians sit cross-legged on rugs coaxing joy from tablas and reed flutes. One man dances in a circle, his eyes closed, palms turned upward, spinning so fast you wonder if he might lift off the ground. You think you're just a spectator. You're wrong. A woman grabs your hand and pulls you into a dance that looks simple but turns out to be a full-body cardio workout disguised as cultural expression. You try to mimic the steps. Your feet tangle. Your turban slips. You nearly knock over a priest. Laughter erupts around you, not mocking but contagious. You laugh too dizzy and breathless. Festivals in medieval India aren't just religious, they're necessary. They punctuate the endless rhythm of labor binding the community in shared story, sound, and spectacle. There's ritual, yes, chanting, offerings, fire. But there's also feasting theatre and poetry competitions. One minute you're watching a boy pretend to be Hanuman swinging a papier-mâché mace. The next, an elder performs a haunting tale of a lost prince using only gestures and his voice. You don't understand every word, but the emotion cuts through the language.
And oh, the food.
You are handed a laddu sticky with jaggery and ghee, followed by something crunchy and spicy that nearly undoes your will to live. You alternate between water and prayer, thankful that the sweet returned, in time to save you from chili-induced collapse. You sit in the shade, chewing thoughtfully when a stranger approaches. He's painted with ash, wearing rudraksha beads, and the kind of calm you only see in people who've fully accepted that they don't need shoes. He speaks in a dialect thicker than your understanding, but you catch phrases karma, dharma, moksha. You nod as if you get it. He smiles, places a dot of sandalwood on your forehead, and wanders off again. You feel oddly blessed. Also slightly sticky. Then comes the animal procession, a cow adorned in gold cloth and bells, a goat with painted horns, even a parrot tied gently to a perch, squawking what might be a prayer or just complaints. Every creature is celebrated. The sacred and the silly blur into one. This isn't a party, it's cosmology with snacks. But for every bright firecracker moment, there's a darker undertone. A woman sits apart, not allowed to join because of ritual impurity. A man is loudly mocked for his stammer during a recitation. A child spills a pot of coloured dye and is smacked so hard he falls silent for the rest of the afternoon. You remember again, joy here is collective but also conditional. Belonging can be deep and exclusion deeper still. Historians still debate the purpose of these festivals, whether they served as pressure valves for the social system or reinforcements of hierarchy wrapped in colour. Likely, both. Everyone plays a part, but not all parts are equal. You, the outsider, are indulged, amused even, but you can feel the boundary. You can dance, eat, chant, even cry, but you're not of this world. Not entirely. Still, as the sun sinks and lamps begin to glow, across the village you find yourself wrapped in something you didn't expect comfort. The music slows. Families gather in circles. A storyteller begins another tale, this time of a goddess who swallowed the ocean to protect the world. The kids lean in, so do you. The drumming fades into heartbeat rhythms, the last flame flickers, and you lie back in the dust full of sweet sweat and songs. You smile, eyes heavy, thinking if I die tonight it'll be in colour.
You wake up in darkness.
Not the comfortable, quiet kind of darkness you're used to. No glow from a nearby phone charger, no blinking light on a smoke detector. Just a vast, velvety black, broken only by the occasional flicker of an oil lamp outside and the strange, echoing bark of something you hope is a dog. It's night in medieval India, and night means something different here. You sit up slowly. Your muscles ache from yesterday's festivities, but the air is cooler now, almost cold. The kind of cold that clings to your skin because the walls are thin and the roof is woven leaves. Outside, the village has gone still. Not asleep exactly. More like cautious. Because after dark, everything changes. You step outside, guided by instinct and one wobbly lamp. It casts more shadows than light, illuminating only the things closest to your hand, the curve of a wooden beam, a spider skittering across your foot, the shine of water caught in a low ditch. Your steps are quiet, so is everything else. But you are not alone. You hear movement, soft scuffing from behind a haystack, the rustle of leaves as someone or something passes nearby. A distant bell rings not joyfully but like a warning. You grip your tunic tighter and remind yourself that this is normal, sort of. In medieval India, the night belonged to others, to thieves, to jackals, to ghosts, to stories whispered around fires about curses and shapeshifters, about spirits that fed on carelessness and eyes that glowed like coals. People told these stories not to entertain, but to survive. You make your way toward the edge of the village where a small fire still crackles and a few men sit in a circle, each holding a stick, eyes watchful. These are the night guards, not soldiers, just farmers on rotation. They nod as you approach, surprised but not alarmed. One offers you a place. You sit beside him, grateful for the light and the company. He hands you a boiled root and says a single word, chore, thief. Apparently someone's goats have been going missing. Not many, just one every few nights. Small enough not to raise alarm, but suspicious enough to merit vigilance. You listen, chewing quietly as they discuss suspects, maybe someone from the next village, maybe a hungry traveler, maybe worse. No one says the word, but you feel it hanging there, Rakshasa. Rakshasas, the shape-shifting demons of Indian mythology, were often blamed for night misfortunes, disappearances, strange illness, bad dreams. Historians still debate whether belief in these creatures was purely symbolic or if people genuinely feared their presence. Either way, you don't ask, you just watch the shadows. The men take turns patrolling the edge of the fields, waving torches and whistling softly, not to scare anything off, just to let each other know they're still alive. You begin to understand why the village shuts down so thoroughly after dusk. Without electricity, without streetlights, without even the dull hum of civilization, the night is vast and primal. And in that darkness, imagination doesn't just wander, it hunts. You return to your hut, eventually escorted halfway by a yawning teen guard with a torch that sputters with every gust. You thank him. He says nothing and disappears.
Inside you curl up on your mat, but sleep won't come.
You think of the stories you've heard, of pretas, hungry ghosts with distended bellies and narrow throats doomed to roam because of misdeeds in life, of Chudales, vengeful spirits of women, wronged known to lure men into forests and leave them lost, of ancestral souls who return if not properly honored. The stories all differ, but they agree on one thing: night is when the world breathes in reverse. You try to focus on other sounds, the steady dripping of water from a roof beam, the gentle breathing of the family sleeping beside you. But your ears twitch with every creak. Your eyes trace every shadow.
And then a scream, far off, short, high.
You sit bolt upright, no one else stirs. You wait, minutes pass, nothing follows. Was it real, a dream, a jackal with lungs too dramatic? You lie back down, heart pounding, and finally drift into an uneasy sleep filled with murky figures and flickering lights. You dream of walking through the village at night, but the people have no faces and the lamps burn blue. When you wake, the sun is rising, the world is bright again, birds chirp, children run. A woman nearby is already pounding grain with a wooden pestle as if the night never happened. You rub your eyes, still haunted by the memory of that scream, or was it just your mind's echo? Here the night doesn't need monsters to be frightening, it just needs silence and a little too much imagination. And in medieval India, both come free with every sunset. You're awakened by trumpets. Not the sleek, polished brass of a marching band, but long, curved horns that blast a sound somewhere between a battle cry and a ceremonial sneeze. You jolt upright, convinced war has arrived. Turns out something has a royal procession. The village is buzzing. People rush to the main road, sweeping dust with palm brooms, laying out garlands, straightening turbans, adjusting saris. Children are painted with dots of sandalwood, and someone even strings marigolds between two trees like a gateway. You barely finish tying your dhoti before being swept along by the current of bodies carried to a prime spot behind a row of pottery stalls. Then you see them, warriors first centuries in bright cloth spears in hand, walking with mechanical precision. Behind them, elephants lumber their foreheads painted in ornate patterns, bells jangling with every step. Horses follow snorting with guards in mirrored chest plates perched on top. And finally, beneath a fluttering parasol, the palanquin. Inside sits someone you can only assume is a local ruler or court representative. He's wrapped in silk so fine it glistens his eyes, scanning the crowd with bored detachment. He doesn't wave, he doesn't smile. But the people bow, some even touch the ground, then their foreheads as he passes. You hesitate. This man's just a human right. Then again you remember, in many parts of medieval India, rulers weren't just administrators, they were divine shadows, earthly avatars of cosmic order. Their word was law, their presence an event. Historians still debate how deeply these ideas of divine kingship permeated daily village life, but the reverence in this crowd is undeniable. You bow awkwardly, it's safer that way. The procession passes, trailing musicians and priests, then vendors and courtiers. It feels part political rally, part fashion show, part mobile temple. You catch glimpses of feather fans, jewel-toned slippers, silver anklets on soldiers. Every detail screams power. And just like that, they're gone. But the impact remains. People chatter about the royal court, the latest edicts, the tax collectors, the prince's rumoured marriage. You're invited to sit with a few men discussing land rights. You nod politely, even as they shift into debates about grain quotas and temple exemptions. One man gestures toward the palace road. They don't know what hunger is, he says flatly, so you try to get closer. You walk carefully toward the edge of town where the entourage has temporarily set up camp. You're met by a soldier who eyes your torn scarf and sunburnt nose. He frowns but says nothing. You smile and step aside. Through a curtain of gauze you glimpse the courtyard of the mobile royal camp. There's music. Someone is being fanned. Platters of food gleam like treasure. This is another world entirely, just a mile from the hut where you slept on dirt. You linger too long. A man in white robes approaches, a court official. He speaks quickly, sharply. You catch only a few words who permission leave. A guard appears, not aggressively, but with just enough presence to make you back away. Turns out curiosity isn't always welcomed. You retreat, returning to the village with the uneasy weight of someone who's seen too much and understood too little. The divide between ruler and ruled is clear, and it's vast. Power here is not just about wealth or soldiers, it's about distance. You live around it, you don't question it, you don't get close. Back in the village, people are still talking. The visit, brief as it was, will fuel stories for weeks. A girl proudly shows off a flower she picked from beside the royal elephant. A man swears he saw the prince wink at a village widow. The potter claims one of his cups was chosen for the palace tea. You smile and nod along, but inside you feel something tighter. Because if you're honest, you know you don't belong in either world. You're not royal and you're not local. You're floating between realities, watching but never quite touching. And as grand as the court is, you're struck by how little it feels like your life. There's no shared labor there, no rain-soaked sandals, no lentils scraped from clay bowls, just silk ceremony and the kind of authority that could erase a village with a shrug. And yet you can't stop thinking about it. That power, that presence, that golden parasol bobbing above a face you'll never forget. You lie awake that night, staring at the thatch ceiling, wondering what the palace looks like from the inside, wondering what kind of life the young man beneath the parasol lives, wondering if maybe he sometimes stares out at villages like yours and wonders what your life is like too. But probably not. In medieval India, the court doesn't wonder, it commands, and you muddy feet, borrowed tunic and all are just another face in the crowd. You don't hear the drums this time, you feel them. The air is thick, heavy. You wake with a strange tightness in your chest, a tension in the village that even the wind seems to avoid. The sun hasn't risen, But people are already moving quietly, urgently. A cart rolls past your hut, carrying sax tools and small children wrapped in cloth. Another follows this one with a goat tied to the side and 3 men clinging to its edges. Nobody is smiling. Nobody is speaking.
Something is wrong.
You pull your scarf over your shoulder and step outside. The first thing you see is a pillar of smoke in the far distance. Not cooking smoke, burning smoke, not a festival, not a funeral, something else entirely. The village headman is at the edge of the square speaking quickly to a group of men armed with sticks and old swords. You catch only fragments coming from the south border fight. We don't know how close. It's war, or something close enough to it. A land feud, a royal succession gone bad, a regional rivalry that's been bubbling beneath the surface and has finally spilled into flames and panic. The details don't matter much here, not to you, not to the villagers. The only thing that matters is that somewhere nearby men with weapons are marching. And this village, it's in the way. You're handed a bundle of food and told to take shelter in the forest if the bells ring again. Someone else gives you a blunt stick. It's laughable, a twig against a blade, but you nod. You're part of this now, even if you're the least useful member of the defense squad. The day unfolds in a haze of preparation. Families gather supplies, children are sent to relatives in safer areas, cattle are herded toward the hills. A few young men, proudly calling themselves warriors, wrap lengths of cloth around their heads and sharpen sickles. They're nervous. You see it in their hands. You try to help. You move pots, roll up mats, carry baskets. Anything to stay useful. But no one's relaxed. Not really. By midday, a group of strangers arrives dust-covered, silent, and wide-eyed. Refugees from a nearby village. Their home was looted, their grain taken, their livestock driven off. A child clutches a broken doll. A man has a bloodied bandage around his knee. You help them settle under a tree, bringing them water, and hear whispers of what happened. Not a full attack, but enough to send the message, stay out of the way, or suffer. Historians still debate how frequent village-level violence was during periods of regional unrest in medieval India. Royal armies fought over thrones and borders, but the villages, they bore the weight. Food was requisitioned, men were conscripted, houses burned, not from strategy but from proximity. In this world, being poor doesn't protect you, it just makes you easier to ignore. As evening falls, everyone is watching the sky. The horizon glows faintly red. Someone lights an oil lamp, and a woman slaps it out with a whisper, "No light tonight." You sit huddled beside the family who's been feeding you, their children, asleep in a pile on their mother's lap. The father sharpens a blade with a look that says he knows it won't help. Still, it's better than nothing. That night the bells do ring, but it's not an attack. It's a false alarm. A herder returning late, mistaken for scouts. Relief floods the village like rain after drought. People laugh a little too loud, some cry. Everyone pretends to relax, but the tension remains like a string pulled too tight. The next day, a royal messenger arrives dusty and pale. He delivers the news the danger has passed. The enemy army has taken a different road. No one says it, but everyone is thinking the same thing for now. The celebration is quiet. A few fires are lit. A pot of lentils simmers. But the mood is subdued. You sit on the edge of the village staring at the spot where the smoke had been yesterday. It's empty now, but your mind fills in the rest.
You survived, but you didn't do anything heroic. You didn't swing a sword, save a child, or rally the villagers. You just waited, hoped, held your breath.
And that's the truth about most war in this time and in most times. It doesn't come with speeches or banners. It comes with fear, with hunger, with stories passed quietly between neighbors. And if you're lucky, it passes. You lie down that night, still clutching the stick you never used. The hut creaks softly. Someone sings in the distance. The child beside you snores gently. Peace for now, but you've learned something crucial. In medieval India, war isn't always about armies. Sometimes it's about simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time with no good options, but to wait, to hide, and to hope the fire skips your roof. You don't want to move. Your limbs are sore, your back aches, like it's been rearranged in your sleep, and even your dreams feel like they've been dipped in exhaustion. But the sun is rising again, and the village is already bustling. You can't lie still forever. Today, though, you decide something, you're leaving. It's not dramatic. There's no storming off or goodbye speech. You simply realize you've hit your limit. You're hungry in a way rice won't fix. You're tired of being bitten, blistered, and bowed under social rules you barely understand. You've spent days surviving, not living. You want shoes, you want silence. You want a room with 4 actual walls. So you gather your few belongings, mostly cloth, mostly damp, and begin asking questions. Where's the road? How do I get to the next town? Is there anywhere else? People are helpful if confused. A farmer points you toward a trading route. A boy offers to show you where the caravans sometimes pass. You feel an odd pang as you look around this village, for all its hardship has kept you alive. These people shared their food, their roof, their fears. They didn't know what to make of you, but they didn't let you starve. You're the stranger who didn't die. That's something. You set off just after midday, the sun high but manageable. You follow a narrow dirt path flanked by tamarind trees and the occasional wandering goat. The forest is dense at first, the sounds unfamiliar bird calls, rustling leaves, and once the unmistakable hiss of something that might have fangs. You move faster. After a few hours, you reach a small bend in the path where a caravan has clearly passed. Broken clay pots, hoof prints, bits of fabric snagged on thorns. But no caravan now. You sit on a rock, drink the last of your water, and sigh. The reality of travel hits you harder than any fever ever could, because you're not equipped for this. Your legs wobble, your sandals fall apart, your head pounds, and somewhere deep in your gut a familiar rumble begins, the unmistakable sound of regret. You stumble into a small settlement by sunset, less a village, more a way station. A few huts, a well, a place to rest. A merchant eyes you warily. You look like trouble, sunburned, blistered, clearly not local. You mumble something, offer a coin. He nods and gives you a cup of something bitter. You drink it, hoping it's medicinal. It isn't. You immediately need to lie down. Your body rebels. The days of bad water, mystery legumes, half-cooked flatbreads, and river baths have caught up with you. You have a fever. Your joints ache. Your stomach wages a full-scale revolt. You lie on a mat that smells like old rice and contemplate your life choices. Every hour you wake in sweat, thirst clawing at your throat. You hallucinate. You dream of toothbrushes, air conditioners, and dry socks. Someone checks on you, an old woman with eyes like river stones. She presses a cool cloth to your forehead and mutters a prayer. You don't understand the words, but you understand the kindness. She leaves a bowl of rice water. You drink it. It stays down. By the 3rd day you can sit up. By the 5th you can stand. The old woman smiles and points to the road. You nod, grateful and humbled. You try to leave again. This time slower, with a staff to lean on and a clearer head. The road winds through empty fields, past groves of fig trees, and once near a ruined temple covered in vines. You stop there just for a moment. There's silence. Real silence. The kind that feels ancient, like it's been waiting. You breathe. And then in the distance, the sound of a caravan bell. You flag it down, waving with what little energy you have. The lead camel snorts. A man peers down at you. He asks where you're headed. You shrug. Anywhere you say, anywhere with rest. He laughs. Aren't we all, he replies, and reaches down to pull you aboard. You sit beside sacks of spice and bundles of cloth, swaying gently as the camel lumbers forward. The sun sets behind you, a burning red disk that bleeds into purple. The air cools. Someone begins to sing, and you just lean back, eyes half closed, finally letting your body relax. You made it out, barely. In medieval India, survival wasn't a story of triumph. It was a test of limits, of heat and caste and hunger and time. You weren't a hero. You didn't change anything. You didn't conquer the system. You just lasted long enough to leave. And maybe that's the hardest thing of all. The camel sways gently beneath you, the bells on its harness jingling like distant wind chimes. The road fades into soft shadows as the last light drains from the sky, leaving only the faint glow of a crescent moon. Around you, the desert breathes in silence and the caravan rolls forward in quiet rhythm. You lie back against a bale of fabric, your eyes heavy now, your breath slow. The weight of the past weeks drifts from your shoulders like dust caught in the wind. The noise, the smells, the struggle, they're all behind you, now softened by distance and sleep. The night air is cool against your face. You hear someone snoring softly. You hear the crunch of camel hooves on the dirt. You feel your pulse, settling your muscles, loosening your thoughts, dissolving into nothing but the memory of firelight and monsoon rain. This world that once overwhelmed you has grown quiet now. Not because it's easier, but because you've stopped trying to fight it. You've let the rhythm take over. You're safe, at least for tonight, and so you breathe deeper. You dream of banyan trees and flickering oil lamps, of flute music under starlight, of stories told in whispers, and of meals shared without words. And slowly, gently, you let it all go. Let the road stretch behind you. Let the shadows lengthen.
Let yourself drift.
You've survived medieval India. Now sleep.